a class for the other batch. As I told you, there are 5 batches of programs parallelly going on. We have 200 plus participants attending the courses online parallelly. So she was the other batch, and I have requested her to take up the coordinatorship to help me go ahead with multiple programs. And she is one teacher who is always willing to take up such responsibilities and do the best to ensure that things move well. In fact, in the schedule also, you would have seen her name and other things, because she is going to handle a session for you on the creativity and higher order thinking skills, which are required for research. Right? Tomorrow she will do that. But all through the other sessions, whenever I have to be away to the other sessions, and whenever she is free from the other sessions, she will be parallelly coordinating. So I'm happy to introduce Dr. Amuda to all of you. Again, we will introduce her when she starts the session tomorrow, right, officially. And for this session, we have Dr. Srinivasa Rao, a very erudite scholar, and he is a person with about 15 years of experience in research, teaching, extension, and consultancy. And he is a little different type of a history teacher, not doing the routines of teaching all the wars and battles fought and gone, all the kings and queens who had lived and gone. He is not that type of a person. He is of a different caliber, and he does a lot of work on history of science and technology, how science and technology evolved over a period of years. And if you track the history of the science and technology in a country, you will have to essentially talk about the research. It's all through research, science and technology expands and grows. And his focus of research is on modern India, national movements, subaltern technologies, and he has held a lot of additional responsibilities and contributed enormously to our university as deputy warden of the men's hostel, as the coordinator of the online courses, and as the coordinator of the environmental club, and as the executive committee member of the Green and Clean initiative of our university. And he is one who is very eco-conscious, right? You may not believe, he is such an eco-friendly practitioner. Of course, all of us are conscious a little bit, no doubt, and we do have an attitude towards protection of environment, but he is a person who puts into practice. You will be surprised to know that he does not eat biscuits at all, because biscuits come in packets of plastics, and that is something he cannot avoid. There is no way biscuits are sold in loose. So he has stopped eating biscuits because he wants to avoid plastic. And wherever he goes, he carries his cloth bags, and he avoids as much as possible, right, plastic. The other day when he was sharing, he never cooks. He never gets rava, both the wheat rava or the white rava, right, for preparing khichdi or upuma, because they sell this. They nowhere they sell in loose. He cannot get it in a paper pack, right? It is always sold in packets of half a kilo, 1 kilo plastics. He wants to avoid that. So that type of person. So I'm sure, of course, his session going to be different for you. He's going to speak to you about the origins of research, how research as a discipline, how research as an academic pursuit, okay, started, and how that triggered a lot of growth in science, technology, and expansion of the ideas. I'm sure you will find the session useful. And Dr. Srinivasa Rao, we have our colleague Dr. Amuda also with me to coordinate things. So I'm sure you will find interacting with the young scholars here really interesting. We have participants from for a couple of states, right, including Karnataka, Andhra, Ahmedabad, Kerala, and then Tamil Nadu. Of course, majority are from Tamil Nadu, and they are a mix-up of subjects. They have diverse subjects they are from. I'm sure you will find interacting with them very interesting. So with these few words, let me hand over the session to Dr. Srinivasa Rao. And one thing is that, you see, it is 10.2. Okay, we normally would hand over the session by 10 o'clock, and till now we see only 39 participants, whereas the 39, my login is one, Dr. Amuda's login is one, and Dr. Srinivas login is one, and our HRDC login 4. If you just minus, it's only 35, whereas 44 participants are there. You see, we will talk to all these 9 people who are yet to join, and we will make that very clear. If you choose to be in, you should be in by 9:55. Okay, not even 9:56 or 57. We don't compromise on this even in principals workshops. Please understand that. Okay, even in principals workshop, even in administrators leadership development program, we stick on to these norms. Okay, because we want to be as professional as possible. We, as I told you yesterday, we don't want to do things in a half-assed manner. நான் தமிழ்ல சொன்னேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். எப்படி வேணாலும் செய்யலாம்னு ஒரு சிஸ்டம் இருக்கு, இப்படி தான் செய்யணும்னு ஒன்று இருக்கு. We follow the second one, இப்படி தான் செய்யணுங்கிறத. அதனால those of you who can be in by 9:55, you are most welcome. Otherwise, if you think that you have better jobs to do, right, you can do that, right? That we want to make that very clear. Okay, because it is you who have come forward to undergo this program, right? Okay, and it is for your benefit that the course is being conducted. You see, myself, Dr. Amuda, we were in by 9:42 or 3, and Dr. Srinivasa Rao was there by 9:47 or so, even though his session starts only at 10 o'clock. Okay, so that is a kind of a professionalism we want to maintain. Let us make that very clear. Okay, you see, there is a beautiful book in the market. When you go, you have to read that book. I am okay, you are okay. It's a beautiful book. Okay, you know, when confrontations, problems, misunderstandings will come, there are 3 situations in which it will come. One is I am okay, you are not okay. Okay, the other one is you are okay, I am not okay. Okay, and the third situation is I am not okay, you are not okay. In these contexts, we will have confrontations, problems, and lack of pleasantness, unpleasant things. Okay, but you know, perfect happiness, perfect coordination will be there when you are okay and I am okay. Okay, so we want that I am okay, you are okay situation, so that things will go fine. So let us not take the time of Dr. Srinivasa Rao. It is over to Dr. Srinivasa Rao for his interactions. Please, thank you everyone. Sir, you have to unmute, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. I thank Dr. Senthilnajan for giving me this opportunity. Also, I'm also thankful to Dr. Amuda Madam for coordinating this program. And hi, everybody. So, Dr. Senthilnajan sir pointed out that I was concerned about environment. In fact, when you're talking about that, it's actually a new paradigm, which is actually Thomas Kuhn's structure of scientific revolution when you talk about. So in fact, I'll be talking about this in detail. This new scientific paradigm, actually, he says that it is a paradigm that determines what kind of scientific research has to be carried out. That means at a particular point in time, a particular research need to be carried out because that research would address the current problem. So environmental research, our research on environment, though it was there from the beginning, say 17th century onwards, but as the way our priorities and our agendas of environmental research, climate science was not there earlier. So what is determining what is to be researched, what is to be produced as knowledge, is the context and time. So that's what the structure of scientific revolution. So structure of scientific revolution, according to Thomas Kuhn, is actually keep on change. It depends upon the paradigm shift. Consistently, one paradigm would not determine what kind of research is carried out. It is the current problem, the current situation, which determines the environmental research, the refashioning of the life as an individual, as a part of the society, is actually determined by the time and context. That is the current problem. So current problem is entirely new. The research agenda is supposed to be entirely new. So that's what he says. So there has to be a paradigm shift from one paradigm to the other. Anyway, so I am very thankful that Dr. Senthilnajan brought out this issue from the earlier talk that I gave to the participants in the environmental sciences or environmental movements yesterday, a few days ago. So coming back to the history, we are in a time where we believe largely our life is being determined by reason, logic, and rationalism. But there were times in history where reason was not the sole decider of the human life. So going back to the pre-classical times, the history from the day we had, or from the time we had the evidence on history, it is J.D. Bernal, a very prominent philosopher of science and historian of science, divided the history into pre-classical, classical, age of faith, and age of reason. Pre-classical, classical, age of faith, and age of reason. So at these points in time, so pre-classical is before 4th century BCE. In this time, what is the dominant thought process? What is determining the social life? What is determining the human life? How we are understanding, how they were understanding what the life is, how they were understanding what the natural truth is, how they were understanding what the physical truth was in the pre-classical times. Given the limitations of human ability to understand the natural reality and natural truth or physical truth, so it is very natural that they depended on the primitive ideas of religion, primitive ideas of God, yet they were able to, certainly their simultaneity in trying to understand, produce a knowledge that is based on the sense, what is actually John Locke later as part of the Enlightenment has proposed, the theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge is generated through the senses. So this sense and as a form of production of knowledge, the experience as a form of production of knowledge was there from the beginning of the human existence. So in the pre-classical times, given the limitations of the human mind or the human ability, expanding your ability to do something actionable or thought comes from the tools that you generate or the strategies that you generate. Your strategies and tools are limited by the time and context in the pre-classical times. So if you are referring pre-classical times, combinedly we are referring to the hunter-gatherer society or the settled societies. We are referring to these societies, how the knowledge is produced, how they are understanding in what kind of nature they were living in, how they understand what they are within the part of the nature. So these limitations to their mind certainly makes them to understand whatever they can generate the experience as a knowledge, and at the same time beyond the comprehensive things are certainly be allowed to be interpreted in a way they can, but it has certain amount of limitations. It cannot be said as science because so the pre-classical time, the hunter-gatherers and the settled communities were producing a kind of knowledge. Whatever it is of two kinds, whatever it was, it is a real experience knowledge on which they were building the strategies of survival. It could be home, it could be gathering of food, it could be hunting of an animal, okay, or it could be living together, it could be facing an immediate problem, solving an immediate problem. That was their strategy. Second is that things that were beyond their comprehension are certainly, as that's not the pre-classical times or the primitive societies, but even till today we make that effort because we still believe, despite tremendous advancements we made in science and technology, we still believe that there are things that are beyond our comprehension. So therefore, we from the primitive human till today, we need some invisible agency on which we can generate interpretations, justify our inadequacies and try to impose our responsibilities and so on and so forth. So that is also there. So this simultaneity from the beginning of human society till today. So that you need to keep in mind that why this simultaneity is continuous. That is, one side there is the first category of knowledge is actually had made tremendous advancements. That means our experience, our expansion of our vision, expansion of our hands, expansion of our tools, things from that of the handmade tools, that of the artificial intelligence. The first kind of category had made tremendous changes, but the first category of knowledge has failed to reduce the human inadequacy to transfer the human inabilities to a source called invisible. So and that continues still there, but not only continues, but it's unfortunately increases. Anyway, so that is a different matter altogether. But however, we have to quite often talk about it because we're talking about the production of truth, generation of knowledge. So therefore, we certainly have to bring it quite often into the lecture. So that is one. Second is classical period. The classical period is actually from 4th century BCE to the 5th century CE. Given that the primitive societies or agricultural societies were transformed into urban societies, and urban societies are large scale urban societies, city states, what we call Rome and Greek. In these city states, the life is becoming so complex and so large and so magnanimous. So in that kind of a situation, and there is a visible production, large amount of wealth, enormous political power, and the certain sections of the society who have enough time to think and on the things that are not earlier thought about, to contemplate on it. The emergence of philosophical community in the Greco-Roman societies, and the very idea of urbanity, as brings certain sort of advanced thinking into the human society. So this urbanity in the Greco-Roman society certainly brought a kind of knowledge, philosophy, science, which was not there earlier. So that knowledge is actually on trying to give a sort of understanding on the universe, on the human body, on the falling of the bodies, dynamics of falling bodies, and so on and so forth. They were doing that. So they were also trying to understand what is the truth and so on and so forth. So here you have the philosophy of science and reason coming into play. In fact, Herodotus for the first time was trying to locate the human history into the category of knowledge, especially history as a discipline into the category of knowledge. So for that to do, he has to eliminate the ahistorical elements in history as a subject. So ahistorical elements are that the illogicalities inbuilt in the story. That means a story in the form of statements which is not sort of an answer to the questions cannot be taken for granted. If the knowledge is in the form of answers to the questions, the answer is coming from a trained mind or a mind that is responding to the answer. So when mind is responding to an answer, that answer is coming from a mind. So mind is at work. So the answer cannot be illogical. Unless and until you predetermine to give an illogical answer, the answer cannot be illogical. So which means both the question and answer coming from a human mind, which is naturally rational. So that sort of for Herodotus, history in the pre-classical times was a kind of knowledge which was in the form of statements. Statements which are never tested, a statement which was not scrutinized by the human mind, or the human mind was never had the ability. That is, in the pre-classical times, the human mind did not have the ability of scrutinizing the statements, for example, a hearsay, but that is not the case with the latter stages of human evolution of knowledge. So, are the evolution of mind. So, evolution of mind as a thinking, an instrument. It was not stuck in a time where it was limited to certain category of thinking. So, it is evolving. Mind was evolving according to the time. So, capacity of thinking also evolving according to the time. So, therefore, the classical times, Greco-Roman philosophy, Greco-Roman civilizations has allowed certain.
Sir, can I ask you one question, sir, if you don't mind?
No, can you do it after 12:30?
Okay, so because I'm not able to follow it, so that's why I'm interrupting you.
You're not able to follow me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, if you want to just, yes, what you have told is irrational mind. Earlier, they used to quote irrational mind, and this is whatever the statement which has come from the irrational mind. The statements are other people, because of there is no evolution of the mind, is unable to derive what they have told. Is your statement, sir? What you have told? Means there is not much of intelligence is there. When somebody has told something and that is not been understood by the other people. Is that your meaning, sir?
I am referring to pre-classical times.
Absolutely,
and
sir.
Even also I also like to make the same statement even to large sections of the society whom we call ignorant, who are uneducated, still believes in certain kind of knowledge which is not considered as knowledge according to the established principles of what is considered as knowledge. So therefore, what I am saying, whether it is the pre-classical times or even till today, there is huge amount of sections of society which is not allowed to think or not allowed to think and respond by various forces in the society. They have their purposes and agendas. So therefore, we need to understand, and that is the truth, whether we agree or not. We still have a sort of a continuity of the primitive mind. Not each and every mind is allowed to evolve. So we need to see that statement very carefully. Allowed to evolve. It is not that naturally do not have the capacity, and every human has the capacity to evolve. Their mind, the degree of knowledge, if you let them free, they will be able to evolve. Their mind will be able to evolve. But however, I have no doubt in stating that we have the social agencies, cultural agencies, religious agencies, political agencies, even the corporate agencies, government agencies would not want the mind to grow or would not want the reason to get into the minds of the people. So it is an undeniable truth. So if you wanted to counter it, that is fine, but that is the truth. So I was referring to a large section of almost 90% of society, 99% of society in the pre-classical times was lacking the ability as we do. If not, I'm referring to each and everyone in this society, the modern day society. I was referring to say go by percentage, we can say go by percentage that at least 95% today or say 20%, at least 20% today have the independent thinking capacity, which does not allow the influence of anybody into their mind. But if you go to the pre-classical times, you have almost 99%, that is not the case. So it is a submissive society in terms of thought process and thought independence. So that's what I was referring to. So
Okay, sir,
then
got your
let
point,
me
sir.
go. Yeah. So thank you. So let me go back to the age of faith after the classical age or classical times. Age of faith sets in. That is the emergence of, according to J.D. Bernal, the emergence of the organized religions. So I was, though this time is actually the J.D. Bernal's time is primarily depend upon the European classification of history into these particular categories of time based on the reason and logic and what time, what is dominating the human thought. That means if you say in the pre-classical times, the primitive religion and God dominating the human thought. In the classical times, if not an exact a philosophy that is totally physical or totally rational, it is certain huge amount of metaphysicality is there in that Greco-Roman philosophy also. One cannot climb, and otherwise there is no job for the Renaissance philosophers and scientists. So then anyway, so the dominant for the first time probably in the history of human society, reason is allowed to play a role in understanding what the humans are during the Greco-Roman times. So as I told you, Herodotus is trying to locate the human as an agent, locate the human within the rational explanation of the human story. He was trying to disconnect the human from the the theological interpretation of the story or life of the human, or explanation of the nature and so forth, so on and so forth. So he was trying to understand and identify human as a rational agent. So that rational agent for him is capable of executing his actions, but for those actions there is reason. For every action there is reason. So therefore, for the first time ever, that's why we call him as father of history, because he was providing the status of knowledge to history. By considering human as a rational agent and trying to give that status to the human as a rational agent, and try to understand the history from the human point of view. So human is a story here. In the pre-classical times, human was not a hero. Human is someone who is not connected to the story at all. But in the classical times, an advanced sort of a thinking that was happening was human is brought into the center of the story, but not totally, unless we come to that stage, total human becoming a total agent of rationalism, considered as such only in the from the Renaissance times. Anyway, so but for the first time, probably during Greeks were making serious efforts to provide historicity to the human. When I use the word historicity, the reality, human realities began to be recognized. Recognition is given to the human as a real existing human, real existing thinking human. So this statement also we need to take into our minds. Real thinking human. Human is real as well as thinking. Understanding the existing visible human, accepting the human as real first, and then allowing that category to consider as rational. That is also very important. These two things were happening in terms of history. So history was becoming rational. History was becoming science. History was not sort of statements. History from the Greco-Roman times is actually answers to the questions. History is humanistic. For him, history is humanistic. So what does it mean? Humanism has two kind of concepts. Conceptually, it has two kind of meanings. One is it's human. It's about humans. Second is humanism. Humanism is your emotions, love, concern, sympathy. This is what we call humanism. But however, when Herodotus was referring to humanistic, he was referring to humanistic as a real human. It is about humans. So therefore, it is not the statements just as like in the pre-classical times. In the classical times, it is answers to the questions. As I told, when you get an answer to the question, unless and until, as I've already made a statement, that a mind is predetermined to give an answer that suits to the question, even if the person who is giving the answer is already determined, already knew that it is a lie, answer is improper. So in that case, that also you need to recognize the capacity of mind to manipulate the answer. That also we need to understand. So that is also power of the mind. But however, the outcome of the answer is actually a lie. So therefore, unless and until you predetermine using the power of the mind and predetermine to give a wrong answer, which is also a byproduct of the thought, which is a very clever sort of an answer. The intelligence of the mind, intelligence of the person is much more higher when you produce a wrong answer, because it is actually very organized answer, very thought-based answer. Mind is not just like that responding. Anyway, so therefore, the classical times, the characteristics of what we call knowledge today began to emerge. Then the age of faith is again sets in. Age of faith is actually the large-scale societies dominated by the thought process. A thought process that is actually, again, as I told you, the determined to produce a lie. Determined to produce a lie because it serves huge amount of purpose, political, social, cultural, whatever. So J.D. Bernal calls the emergence of organized religions has an impact on the curtailing of the thought or arresting of the thought. So in the age of faith, that is from the 5th century CE to the 11th century CE, the age of faith, though he was only referring to geographical locations like Islamic world as well as the Christian world, these two religions were becoming organized with one single book, one single religion, one single language, one single hierarchized religious systems, and an imposed structure of faith and worship and all that. So he was saying that it was the emergence of organized religions which actually had an impact on the thought process, curtailed the thought, imposition of the theory of creation on the mind. So this he calls, or many historians agrees, after the classical period where there is a huge amount of flourishment of the science, technology and philosophy in the urban city states or urban culture, after the end of or fall of the Greco-Roman empires, the setting of the, again, a sort of a agricultural culture or a dismantled urban society resulted in the re-emergence of the small states, what we call feudal states in the context of Europe. So there, so since urbanity is gone, again, the organized religion began to take control over the thought process. And in course of time, from the 1st century CE, by the 4th century CE or the 5th century CE, organized religion, here I'm referring to the Christianity, becomes sort of an organized religion, asserts control on the mind and on the society, and it's very well get connected to the political power. So it says that you and me should go together. If that is not the case, you cannot survive. So that relation established between the politics and religion, government and religion, it continues forever, flourishes forever, and on and off. Actually, it raises its head and we fail to disconnect the religion from the politics and so on and so forth. So it did have a serious, huge impact on the human thought process. So as a controlling religion, as a controlling mechanism of thought, enslaving mechanism of humans, is still is a powerful instrument from the times of pre-classical times even till today. But in the age of faith, it gets more organized. The mind controlling mind controlling mechanism gets very organized and powerful compared to that of the pre-classical times. Pre-classical times, even the classical times also, you do not have defined religions, what they call paganism or something, worshipping of the nature and so on and so forth. But here, in the age of faith, you get an organized religion. That organized religion exerts power over the general society through its organized structure, hierarchy of religious administration, one single God, one single religion, one single worship, mechanism of worship, and so on and so forth. So that is had an impact on the thought process, which means the European historians, and many agrees to this, especially when it comes to the European history, this is called as a dark period region. Dark means here we are referring to a kind of lack of light. Dark is here lack of light. Lack of light is lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is lack of philosophy, lack of science, lack of practical understanding of the human society, human practical life, human nature, human relation with the nature, and so on and so forth. That is missing here at this point in time. So that is from the 5th century CE to the 11th century CE. Then the age of reason. Again, one must say you can draw the conclusions from history of China, history of India, history in terms of philosophical thought, materialistic philosophy, and advancement of science is there in the rest of the civilizations. One cannot deny, but it's the categorization by J.D. Bernal is primarily based on the European history. But also you can see some sort of overlapping, that's all, but otherwise I think it is fine. The age of reason, 11th century to the present, age of reason is based again on what determines the human society's life, general life, daily life, knowledge production, innovation, what determines the human life. So primarily, whether you agree or not, we determine not to agree, that is up to us as an individual, educated or uneducated, that our life from the morning to the night is being determined by logic, nothing else. Yet, as I told you, from the pre-classical times, that is from the primitive society, that is continuity of a category of knowledge that exists simultaneously, which cannot be considered as knowledge, but we are comfortable with the existence of such a kind of a knowledge because we sometimes feel that it is unproblematic. Why the hell we deny it? Such a category should be there because it provides some sort of a satisfaction to someone who is going through a mental tension, or someone is not able to solve the problems. He wanted to believe in such amount of knowledge or a force or a source which could give some sort of a solace to the suffering soul. So let it be there. Unless and until it is not problematic, we need not have to worry too much about it. So that's what Jawaharlal Nehru also said. Jawaharlal Nehru says that, look, whatever is comprehensible, whatever is understandable, you recognize it as a truth. Whatever is visible, you cannot deny it as a truth. But whatever is uncomprehendable, you don't need to worry. Okay, whatever is comprehensible, you consider it as a knowledge. Don't deny the existence of the reality. If you cannot comprehend something beyond your comprehension, don't worry about it. So take the life as it is practically. You try to apply practicality to your
Sir,
life.
please give examples to that, sir. Comprehensible. that all? Can you
No,
give
yeah,
an
that's what.
example?
Comprehensible. You're asking examples for comprehensible.
Yes, sir.
No,
So,
comprehensible meant you are you have some sort of physicality is comprehensible. You as a person has some sort of physicality is comprehensible. That's what my example is. Anyway,
okay,
so
sir.
coming back, yeah. So coming back to the age of reason. So age of reason is dominated by the reason, realism, science, scientific method, scientific revolution, enlightenment, modernism, and so on and so forth. These are the major philosophies which are determining the age of reason. But as I told you, along with it, you have also the pre-classical knowledge or the primitive society's knowledge, quote unquote. I don't want to call it as knowledge, but many of us, majority of us, despite being educated, we consider that as knowledge, and we don't problematize that knowledge because we believe it is not problematic. Let it be there, simultaneously existed. Many people are benefiting from certain that kind of knowledge. Again, I am using the word knowledge carefully. I don't consider it as knowledge, but people predetermined to consider it as knowledge. So let it be there. We need not have to worry unless and until it is troubling you. Even if it is troubling you, you don't problematize it. That is the point which worries me a lot. Okay, even a knowledge, what we call knowledge, and that transforms into a cultural, social, political identity. Based on that knowledge, we produce identities. Though those identities are unfortunately were producing a lot of suffering, agony, pain in the human society in the name of in the name of my own culture, my own God, my own religion. Yet we don't problematize it. That is the serious problem, and in that process we consider something that is not true as true. Yet such a truth which is considered as truth is by the fallible human is producing huge amount of suffering and pain and agony in the human society. So that's there. Anyway, so point is the continuation of the primitive thought. I'm not blaming the primitive society, because primitive society is lacking that capacity of understanding what is the natural truth. But as long but today we are not the primitive society. Primitivity should not have been continued into the present. But I am I'm afraid that this primitivity not only continue into the future, this primitivity is going to be there in future in high degree. That's what is the serious problem, high degree, so which is actually failure of a civilized society. And so which means the knowledge and something that is not called knowledge, both continues despite the huge amount of physical evidence is existing on the inventive capacity of the human from that of the tools that are created for hunting the animals to that artificial intelligence or understanding the black holes, whatever. So that's what is a serious problem for my understanding. Continuity of the primitive thought or human consciously determining that they do not have the capacity of understanding the natural truth. So this consciously determining not to understand the natural truth or making them decapacitate. It is not that, in other words, I would not say that a lot of the humans are come to the conclusion that they do not have the capacity to understand the natural truth. But I would say that is the selfish social forces, selfish political forces, selfish religious forces makes an organized attempt to decapacitate the mind, which our minds are at their foot, at their disposal, if you wanted to say, which our minds are at their disposal. They would make every effort to decapacitate their minds, eliminate make them convinced that you are incapable of thought process, you cannot understand what you are doing. This is a basic principle of the theory of creation. So you cannot understand what you are doing. So which means if you continuously keep on saying this, it's like a hypnotism sort of a thing. That's why you see a whole lot of minds existing today, which were naturally when on outside at the outset. If you look at those minds in the sense, I'm not seeing the mind, but people, mind. When people represents their minds, one has to say, I wonder how many minds are how many people come to the conclusion that they are incapable of understanding the natural truth, physical truth. Are they to be blamed? I don't think so. I don't think so. They are to be blamed. They cannot be blamed because mass existence of the non-thinking society is essential for the existence of the socio-religious forces, political forces, as a forces. Otherwise, they cannot exist as forces. It is not easy for a challenger to challenge. That means if you have an independent mind, every person is a challenger. If you allow the independent mind to grow, every person is a challenger. But if every person is a challenger for the government, for the religion, for the social forces, it will be a social chaos. But that I don't agree. Because that human society, given the humanity in the human, is capable of understanding the human reality and trying to form a sort of humanism, produce and cultivate humanism that can take care of human. But you have to let the human to behave as human, which actually behaves in a way that that behavior is actually determined by the inbuilt logic, common sense, and reason. So when you allow the inbuilt logic and common sense and reason to allow in the human to behave, that behavior is the finest cultural product for my understanding. But unfortunately, we come to the conclusion, the civilizations back in time come to the conclusion that human is animal, need to be controlled. That is actually, for my understanding, is unfair. Anyway, so knowledge production in the pre-modern times, as I've already pointed out, the pre-classical times, and already point out, as I told, trial and error was there, from eating a fruit, a poisonous fruit, to understanding a sweet fruit. So that is also a knowledge that the trial and error was beginning. From the beginning it was there, and till today it is there. Trial and error is still there. So that's why I'm saying that continuity of the primitive society is still there, because science is not allowed to penetrate into the each and every human mind. Though certain kind of science is there in each and every mind, what we call today popular science, people science, in different concepts we understand. Yes, people science is there. Whatever everyone does according to their sense and understanding, problem they face, solutions they create, generate. Certainly, that is science. One cannot say scientist only a producer of science. A farmer is a producer of a science. A crow hunter is a producer of a science and strategies. I do understand, but then the scientist science and the crow hunter science or the deer hunter science are not the same. So therefore, if the science is produced from, say, for example, understanding on the body as a mechanical thing is already generated back in 1543, to what extent we allowed that knowledge to penetrate into the open society? How many of us, even educated, would understand body can be understood mechanically? The Andreas Vesalius applied the mechanics to the body and produced anatomy back in 1543. But where was 1543? Where are we? How many of us and the how much of the mass society still believe in the body is a product of the God, designed and produced by the God? And we eliminate many of us still believe in the contradictory beliefs. That is, we still believe that the human is born from a process, a biological process, which is scientifically understandable. And we also have a mechanism of scientifically producing the human. I need not have to tell what they are. And at the same time, we also carry on with the contradictory belief that we are still being produced by the invisible. That is also there. So that's where, elimination of this contradiction between what is really true, what is really not true. Elimination of this contradiction, we celebrate it as a human intelligence and greatness. But unfortunately, it cannot be celebrated so. But that's what we are doing. So we are trying to give status of knowledge to the both. But in actuality, both are not the knowledge systems or knowledges, in fact. So, however, so that is what the serious problem is when it comes to the understanding the natural reality. So trial and error method of producing knowledge. So the primitive societies did not have the ability to understand as organized, as systematic as we are today. They did not have the ability of understanding the natural reality and developed methods of survival. They have developed the methods of survival according to their own context, as like we are doing the methods of survival. In the very beginning of the lecture, I was talking about generating the knowledge on the climate change, developing the strategies of protecting the environment, reviving the traditions which had once eco-friendly characters, like Kudimaramartha. I was also referring to this method earlier. So this is also a strategy of survival. So what's the difference between this strategy of survival and the pre-classical times or the primitive society strategies of survival? Both are not the same. I think you agree with me, because the environmental strategies to protect the environment, knowledge to protect the environment, science to understand the climate change are pretty organized, pretty systematic, pretty serious, and it is internationally collaborative, combination of n number of minds, n number, dramatic infrastructure. So it's so powerful in producing the methods of survival. But nobody, I'm not sure that we are capable enough to face the problem. But however, that's what Thomas Kuhn says, that at this point in time, what determines the central the activity of research is the problem in hand. So the survival methods of primitive societies and survival methods of the present societies are being determined by the kind of problem that you face. So, but however, again, let me point out the combination of our survival strategies. Like you can worship the globe and say that do puja to globe and say the climate change will be reduced. That is one sort of a method of survival. And actually, you go for research of understand why there was a avalanche in Jharkhand. You can also scientifically find out the problems, reasons for the Jharkhand avalanche that has taken away 3 power projects and killed. The number of people who have been killed have not been published properly publicly. But however, so you can do puja to your globe and say this is the method of reducing or surviving, and at the same time you can also conduct a serious scientific research into the climate change. So the existence of both, believing both at this point in time is unfair. unfair. I would say unfair. They're not improper. Improper if you say, do you mean to say that there is only one truth that exists? You can consider plenty of truths, but then to the common mind, at least that should appear as logical. Worshipping the globe will reduce the global warming. If you believe that is the finest scientific strategy, then you are actually manipulating your mind, which is actually inbuilt, cheating your own mind to agree to something which is not true or which cannot be true, it can never be true, it can never work, it can never be practical. Yet we compromise our mind. So it's not that you and me singly, our percentage is very minimal. So such an act of making the mass to believe that it is as knowledge, that's what is very dangerous. You and me capable of dismissing that is something that is unfair. But then how many people, mass number of people, educated society is capable, but not all educated society. Let me give you in writing. So not all educated society will be capable of dismissing globe, worshipping the globe or doing puja to the globe would reduce the global warming. There are many among us would believe that that can work. But at the same time, but that is not worry me. You are very little % of people. But however, that is also dangerous because you work as a person who convinces those people who are not capable of thinking as we do. So as an educated person, you are compromising here with your own inbuilt knowledge and capacity of thinking. Then when will you take it to the people whom you are supposed to be responsible to transform their mind, take care of things, and because you have the responsibility of taking care of society as a payback to the society. But we are not, so at our individual level, we are very comfortable with the simultaneous dual truths. So dual truth is very unfortunate in an educated person, but that is what the prime character of the so-called civilized society or rational society is. So anyway, that is a serious problem. So trial and error is there. The survival methods are there from the beginning, but the way we create survival methods by producing the knowledge absolutely differs from the primitive times to today. In the settled communities, you see an advanced thought process of producing knowledge and creating the non-existent, but it is not disconnected from the nature. That is, say, if you're talking about the settled societies made to believe that they need to produce because there was no food available for hunter-gathering. So whatever is naturally available is consumed. So you need to settle somewhere. That too, according to the historians of the ancient times, pre-modern times, that means the prehistory, they have come to the conclusion. D.D. Kosami working on history of India. In ancient times, they have settled on the riverside. That is also a logical decision. Why do they settle on the riverside? Most of the Vaigai Valley civilization we are talking about today. So why were they settling on the riverside? So which means that there is an application of logic, as in considering water as an essential product, considering the essentiality of human, essentiality of water to the human, and at the same time for the reproduction as an activity, reproduction of food we are talking about. So agriculture, reproduction of food, what is needed is essentially is water. So therefore, the settlement of both for drinking as well as for reproduction of food for the settled societies, they have riverside. And for the settled societies, the thought process of much more in it gets advanced in terms of understanding, giving the shape and form to the very idea of God and worship, and getting religion bit more organized compared to the primitive hunter-gatherer societies and so forth. So knowledge, in fact, the first category of knowledge I was talking about, that is giving some sort of creating some amount of quote unquote, I'm using this not as knowledge, but however here in the settled societies, it becomes much more advanced in the sense that the interpretations of the invisible and the worship mechanisms a bit more systematic. The invisible gets some amount of physicality in the settled societies. Invisible will get a physicality. What is physicality? To the invisible shape and form, if there is, you cannot continue to say that there is something, but you are forced to convince in that something. So some religions, they believe that the invisible need to be provided some amount of physicality. Physicality is a physical shape. And a system of worship need to be established. So these strategies are to make people believe that things that are not true as true. You wanted to see the invisible, come and see there is a sculpture, there is a statue, there is a form. And so who knows how one looks like, how the invisible looks like. It doesn't matter. For the first time you are seeing something, the form of the invisible, so that's it. How do you know whether that the invisible looks like this or not? There is no opportunity to check that physicality of invisible. So therefore, you provide whatever you think for the people who wanted to provide physicality, especially the society, the individuals or the communities which are so powerful, or acquired the power, absorbed power in settled societies, began involved in providing physicality to the invisible. So since nobody has seen how the invisible looks like, whatever for the first time you are seeing, that's what is real. So therefore, there is a certain amount of physicality was given to the invisible during the settled societies. Apart from that, the system of worship need to be systematization of worship is also there. Systematization of worship also is a strategy of providing logic to the illogical. Okay. Systematization of worship. First this, later that. First this, later that. It has to begin like this. It has to end like this. These kind of materials are needed. So all this systematization, of course, those materials are real existing material, and those materials are very perfectly based on their usages. The usages are interpreted, usages are explained, usages are connected to the ritual. So all these things, for a mind that is not so independent, it is easy for the creators of the systems, especially illogical systems, to make them appear logical, to make them appear rational. So if you say systematic is what is science, systematic is what is knowledge. So therefore, if I do things systematically, that is knowledge. How can you counter it? On what basis you are countering? Am I not doing systematically? If I am doing systematically, that is knowledge. So which means it is a very strategic application of systematization to provide the logic to the illogical. Okay, so that, it's very visible to each and every person who is capable of understanding what is systematized. But is that systematized is actually systematic in a sense, but is what is the politics of systematization of a thing that need not have to be systematic? What are the politics behind? So how we are denying providing the knowledge status to someone which is not knowledge by borrowing the characters of our methods of knowledge production. Understand what I'm saying? By borrowing the methods and means of knowledge production, we systematize something which is not systematic at all. That systematic is not needed at all. You can start with Z and you can end with A. That does not matter. But however, when you provide systematic procedure, something that is not knowledge acquires the characters of knowledge. So that is there. So therefore, the primitive societies, invention of, especially the settled societies, invention of the knowledge, invention of the God, providing systematic, systematization of the worshipping, the ritualistic sort of traditions, as becomes essential because in these settled societies you have the emergence of the clan leaders. The clan leaders' responsibility is to control the society, behavior, manage, maintain society, because that is needed. So the sociologists would say, what is the purpose of inventing the sort of invisible? The prime purpose was to control the humans, because otherwise they go bizarre in the here and there, which is actually unless and until you allow the humanism to play an important role, use the other means to control the human, is actually a strategy that is never tested, never been tested properly, or never stand the scrutiny of the human mind. So there is a nice human who is followed by thousands of lakhs of people, who has never committed any crime and so on and so forth. There is a criminal who is also being followed by thousands, and so both are not the same. One is humanism, another is controlling mechanism, fear. So that's the same kind of thing. So I would say humanism is the finest character of the human, to control the humans, to bring the humans into the order. You need not have to have a fear or something to bring into to bring the human into the chaotic, so-called chaotic human society into the order. So mass controlling as sort of a mechanism that is used by the settled societies. As I've already talked about, the classical times. Classical times has produced a huge amount of knowledge, but most of its knowledge, though sort of a semi-scientific in a sense, it still had suffered the lack of complete scientificity in the knowledge. So Plato, Aristotle, all of them have created the present-day characters of science. For Aristotle, science is a body of properly arranged knowledge or learning. The empirical facts, but also their ordering and display are crucially important. So that's what he says. So which means the classical times has the characteristics of the present day science, yet it has limitations of the time, full time. Despite this being an organized urban religion, urban society, still it has a problem of human limitations of understanding the universal truth or human reality. But that is actually with the publication of Copernicus' revolution of orbits, as well as the fabric of the human by Andreas Vesalius. These limitations are eliminated, but the 16th century is different from the 4th century CE, BCE, and the 5th century CE. The times are not the same. So therefore, we have to understand, certainly there is a sort of limitations to the human society, especially thinkers or engineers, whoever they are, to produce a knowledge that can be compared to today's knowledge. In fact, however, their minds are not simply understandable. You have to do a lot of
Hello. Someone unmute.
Someone is speaking. Please mute your mic. Vivekanandan Indira, please mute your mic. So after the classical times, you have age of faith. Age of faith I've already spoken at length, but age of faith, what it does is that it, as I told you, it comes organized way with a theory. Sorry. So the essentiality of providing the structured shape and form to the religion felt
So your signals are very weak, sir. We are unable to hear you.
Controlled by the enormous emperor's power. Here, after the dismantling of the empires, to regain the controlling power or to rebuild the empires, the political power or the inbuilt capacity of military power of the feudal lords was not enough. So therefore, one has to use the very important and very essential and very say powerful force called religion to regain the lost supremacy over the mind. So that comes apart from militarily, it will come otherwise, or else by bringing the people into the submissive thought process, it can also be brought. So second is very easy. Militarily, it can be done, and it can also be brought through a process of bringing the minds into submission. So second found to be better, so they were using it. So very comfortably they have created one single God, one single religion, one single and organized structure, one single book, one single place of worship. So all these things were very cleverly created, and at this point in time, for the political power and the power of religion to maintain domination over the mass society, what you need is elimination of thought process. And that thought process actually also results in denying or disconnecting the flow of knowledge from the past into the present. So whatever that was produced in the Greco-classical times was not continued into the faith, age of faith. There's a disconnection. Very less of what was produced during the Greco-Roman times is continued into the age of faith. Very, very, very less. Especially the Greek, compared to that of the Roman, Greek is much more powerful. Greek philosophy, science are much more powerful. So that was not actually allowed to continue into the future. Later, but the same, I mean, see, from the 6th century onwards, or prior to the 6th century onwards, the Islamic Arabian society was borrowing from the Greco-Romans and simultaneously was developing the knowledge, science. So that is to be again borrowed by the Renaissance Europeans to further develop into what we call today modern science. But Islamic society, Arabian society had a great time in producing, while the Europe was suffering under the complete domination of the religion during the dark period, what it is known as the period that is from 4th century CE to the 9th century CE, that's known as dark period in terms of lack of science, knowledge, philosophy, and so on and so forth on practical life and natural truth and physical truth. While in the other civilizations, according to J.D. Bernal, and the historians of the Asian society who have worked on the history of science and technology have made claims, or certainly those claims are true, that while the Europe was suffering under the domination of the religion, Islamic society, India, China was flourishing with the scientific traditions. So which means we cannot say that scientific research was only or science production of modern science can be completely attributed to the European society. It has borrowed. There is a cultural interflow between the civilizations. The knowledge was flowing from one civilization to the other at particular point in time. So it is the entire science is not the sole ownership cannot be given to the European society. So, for example, distillation was, which is a mother of chemistry. Distillation was coming from the Arabic society. Numericals were coming from the Arabic society, apart from the contribution of zero from India. So, algebra, Al-Kharzami, was a contribution from Islamic society. So therefore, these variations are there. Yet, what's happening majorly at this point in time is that complete dominations, imposition of theory of creation. That is, you are a person who is created for a purpose, let live for a purpose, and killed for a purpose by the God. So therefore, you are not you are not owner of your own thoughts and actions. If let and controlled by the invisible, you are like a left out horse will be running in all directions. It is the control of the invisible that you are running in a decided direction or a predetermined direction, what is called blinkered horses. So the blinkered horse is actually provided a straight path by not allowing the horse to see on different sides. So you allow the control the horse through various mechanisms. So that's what the theory of creation says. So you are byproduct of my design, you are an actor in my play, you are a, what do you say, you're a doll in my under control. So this is the theory of creation. So that is, without mercy is imposed on the human mind. So which means that needs a complete submission, call for a complete submission of the human into the control of the forces which are interested.
So lost you.
Oh, sir, video hanging.
Yeah, let's go for a break. I was informed to give the break, so I'm sorry that I did not see the time.
Sometimes video was hanging.
Yeah, I know. Probably I'm using the mobile sort of data.
So
Probably
sometimes
that's
voice was not cleared.
okay. Is it okay? Well, so I'll take care of that. So let's go for a break, I think.
Yeah, fine. நான் ஏதோ சொன்ன மாதிரி வந்தா சொல்றாரு.
I think we can start again. So the age of faith is slowly established control on minds. I think over a period of time we failed to reduce that control, even if we wanted it, because the strategies of controlling the human mind and so powerful, and they are intertwined with the culture of the common culture of the human. So therefore, it is not easy to eliminate unless and until you are so determined. However, the religion and faith and theology as one dominant form of knowledge is began to be challenged by the growing urban society. Again, as I told you, in the urban society of the Greco-Roman times, there is a certain amount of acceptable knowledge. Then the re-emergence of urban society from 9th century onwards, 9th century CE onwards, began to throw a challenge to the domination of organized religion. So that is actually a form of a secular society. That secular society was resulting out of improved techniques of production in agriculture, as well as in towns, production of material for services, for example, corn flour, especially when you refer to the Europe, corn flour and wheat flour. Is actually wheat flour and corn flour is actually resulted out of mechanization of wheat flour. The mechanization is not automatization, but however reducing the dependence or the amount of power of the animate in producing the wheat flour or on the corn flour, where the windmill, water wheel kind of contrivances have filled the human with the confidence of creativity. Inventive capacity is increased, the regrowth of the urban society, and that made them busy. So therefore, that is actually in a way taking them away from the daily engagement with the religion, which is not actually the secular society that we're talking about in the 9th century CE. Is not a society that is actually as we understand the secular today. That society is not dismissing the existence of God or something, or saying that religious rituals are not important. It is actually getting busy with the production, getting busy with the life, getting busy with the administration, and so on and so forth. So huge amount of inventive culture was emerging in the urban societies of Europe. So therefore, automatically, when you are busy, you would have less time to pray, visit the temple or church or whatever. So that human getting busy made them have a less engagement with the religion. So that less engagement gradually resulting in sort of a distance from the church and the society. That found to be very serious problem for the Catholic Church. So what it did, it has created schools as a means and mechanisms of producing through research, of course, again, through research to produce the knowledge that justify the theory of Christianity. They have created schools So the the general society is becoming much more busy, and it is slowly becoming less religious in the process of its getting busy. And then this inventive culture, growth of inventive culture is also filling the human society with some level of confidence of being inventive and creative. So that creativity and inventiveness in the human society, in fact, what is known as improving the techniques of production. So improving the techniques of production would result in improving the inventive capacity also. If you don't have the inventive capacity, you cannot improve the techniques of production. So the water wheel windmill in the European Mediterranean area, which actually disconnects the, allows the human to think that I am a controller or a proper user of the nature or natural forces. I have acquired the ability of using the natural forces, power. That's what is inanimate power. So the development of a contrivance, that is the windmill and water wheel, both are natural forces. The mechanisms to capture the power of the natural forces for the human usage. Windmill, water wheel, that's what we say, or windmill, water wheel, both are used in the mills of corn and wheat. So that represented the inventive capacity of being creative by the human. That gave them, filled them confidence. And apart from that, they're busy with extending urban life, expanding urban life, led them to be less religious, more practical. So that means, there is a characters of a person who do not care much about, like, see, as like Jawaharlal Nehru pointed out earlier, I told, if there is something that you don't understand, it does not affect you, you don't worry. Anything that affects you and there is a practical solution for that, you have to think practically. Don't be a person who depends upon the things that cannot provide any solution when solution is practical. Understand? So that's the same thing. So the European medieval society, urban society, is also doing the same. That it is not too much realizing that there are practical things that to be done than to believe in the invisible. Or so when the distance between the religion and the society was increasing, it automatically sends the shock waves to the religion. That means its survival is at stake. Foundations are shaking. So therefore, see, if someone is to something to survive, there has to be a life in it. So, so usually for religions, you need to have the followers. If the followers are going away, you cannot have the very idea of the very structure and very establishment is at risk. So therefore, what it did is started appointing the friars. Friars are actually this Indian, sort of, Indian form of sannyasis, where they were responded. They were given with the responsibility of rebringing the people into the fold of church. So appointing the friars and establishing schools. These are the two strategies followed by the. Here the knowledge produced earlier from the 4th to the 9th, 12th century or 11th century, the schools are being established from the 11th century, that is 1000. What is happening is that the schools were established after 9th century with an intention of producing the knowledge that's combination of theology, science, natural reality. Earlier, that was not the case with the theology. Theology is purely theology. From 11th century onwards, theology is forced to borrow the knowledge of science or science into its fold to present to the open society, but that look, what I say is also true. All that I say is not untrue. What I say is also true. So to make the civil society or the general society to bring into the fold again, it has to combine the science with the theology. So today's prominent universities that you know, Oxford, Cambridge, Paris, Bologna, Salamanca, all these universities, Padua University in Italy, all these universities were established as religious medieval schools to train the sisters, brothers, fathers, and all these people with the knowledge on the nature, knowledge on mathematics, knowledge on science, and knowledge on theology. So the combination of theology and science became essential to bring the society that is distancing away from the church. So it has to bring. So Saint Thomas Aquinas, one of the main friars, develops the argument. Look, if there is something that is beyond the comprehension of the science, everything cannot be explained by science. Love, affection, so all these things. So therefore, for everything you cannot depend upon science. So therefore, you have to come back. The arguments he was building, he was dismissing the significance of science. So it's not typical science that was coming from the Renaissance times, after Renaissance times. However, it has the elements of practical knowledge. That is the creation of the windmill water wheel as inanimate power is a symbol or an example of the understanding the natural reality and employing the natural reality to the human benefit. Windmill, water wheel, or such examples. So the very physicality of the windmill and water wheel is an outcome of the human intelligence, creativity. So that way, there is a sort of convincing distancing away civil society to bring back that into the fold of church. So that is one. Second, a purpose of the schools is to train and produce knowledge through research, of course, again, produce knowledge that could be combined with theology, so that the preacher is capable enough facing the questions coming from the society, provide acceptable answers to the followers, if at all, if there are critical questions on natural reality, some problem which is practical, and so the answer a follower seeks always from the preacher, is it not? Once someone is established himself or herself as knowledgeable people, the follower of that person would automatically come to her or him for the seeking suggestions or seeking answers. It is natural, is it not? So from the 4th century onwards, church established itself as a provider of answers to the problems or questions faced by the general society. So therefore, it has the responsibility of providing answers to the questions coming from the followers. Is it not? So in that process, it has to equip the preachers with the capacity of providing answers to the questions. So how that capacity, earlier you need not have to have that capacity, because the general society is not asking any typical critical questions to the master. Now the typical critical questions are coming because it is a society which has dramatically changed, because of the application of mind, inventive capacity, improved techniques of production, urban culture, and so on and so forth, the society was asking typical critical questions for which the preacher has to answer. Therefore, the preacher has to be well equipped with the ability of argumentation. So that ability of argumentation comes from the ability to speak. Ability to speak comes from ability to construct a sentence. Ability to construct the sentence comes from grammar. Providing meaning to that sentence comes from logic. Okay, so the construction of a sentence, ability to speak, is what is called rhetoric. Rhetoric is actually ability to immediately respond to an answer or a question or a challenge. Start framing the response immediately within the mind. But when you're framing that response is not provided by anybody. It is a byproduct of your mind, but that mind should be able to produce the response. That mind will fail to produce the response if does not have the enough material inside it. Is it not? And if someone asks a question, if that answer does not sound logical, that response or answer will be immediately rejected, is it not? So therefore, if someone asks, you just say something, try to set up, that person would never work. That is not how the arguments work. If you believe that the question is logical, answer should also be logical. If you want the person to agree whatever you told as a response or an answer, you should have the ability, extra ability of imposing that person to say whatever I say, you agree, that's it, final. So that is only done in the religious establishment where you have this is the word of the God, I am the authority of the God, so therefore what I say is final, that is what is the answer to your question. So if the answer did not appear to be logical to your mind, don't ask another second question. Okay, so what happens here, when the answer is not logical, appears to be logical, sounds to be logical, that answer is forced to be accepted by a person who asked that question. What does it mean? You are imposing an answer, forcing that person to accept an answer which is not logical at all. But that imposing of forcing that answer on him comes with an authority. It has to come with an authority if the answer is not logical. Otherwise, because both are humans. The person who questioned, asked a question, the person who gave the answer, both are humans. Understand? If the person who is providing the answer is not endowed with some amount of authority, okay, not given with some amount of authority, there will be discussion and debate, argument. Discussion and debate and argument, what does it mean? Till the truth of the discussion comes out, till the agreement comes out. That agreement is supposed to be on the basis of logic, common sense, and reason. You would not accept anything until and unless something sounds to be logical, rational, and commonsensical. That is the nature of the human mind. It does not matter who you are. Though the capacity of being logical, rational can be improved by degree, by going to education capacity, but every human has the capacity of thinking, rejecting, accepting, and all this activity of rejecting, accepting, asking, contemplating, thinking, all this will happen in the independent individual mind. So every mind is endowed with a degree of capacity to think originally, but your original thought to be rejected as illogical. the person who wanted to reject your thought as illogical need to be provided with some amount of authority. That authority comes from by physical strength, by religious strength, and by group strength. Only three, these, sometimes economic strength also. Economic strength. So in these three ways only the power can be absorbed or acquired to impose your wishes on the other, impose your quote unquote your truth on the other. Okay, so that is happening. So they are not able to the secular society of the Europe not accepting the church answers as the church wanted them. So therefore this challenge has to be faced. So challenge have to be countered. So church has gone for the Reformation, where it has equipped the preachers, religious priests with the ability of constructing arguments, ability of logic, and ability of rhetoric. You come after some time, sorry. So ability of logic, grammar, and rhetoric. So all these three would help the person to make the arguments. Grammar is for construction of a sentence. Logic is to speak meaningful argument. Rhetoric is to make the argument. So the church went for such kind of an exercise, so that church is capable of providing the answers that are sound logical. So which means the theology, pure theology, is forced to accept science. From then on, you can see probably only in Christianity you can see huge amount of science. They coexisted. The church has made huge efforts to eliminate science and religion. There's a huge fight also between science and Christianity for a long time. If there is any religion where the scientist has posed serious challenges to the church, to the religion, it was only Christianity. If there is any religion where there was a fight between faith and reason, where a lot of lives are lost, even scientists were lost lives, it is only Christianity. Galileo, Giordano Bruno was killed by the church for proposing multiple theories of universe. Galileo was subjected to the inquest, a religious court, for supporting what Copernicus said. So there is this. There is also Illuminati, though Illuminati is still found to be a historical sort of a thing. There is something called Illuminati. Illuminati is a community of the scientists forced by the church into the underground, and they're working underground against the church to promote their science and so on and so forth. So like that, you have this consistent, constant fight between the faith and reason for a long time. I think the amount of fight or tussle could only be seen in Christianity. Neither we saw that in Hinduism, nor we saw that in Islam. The tussle between the science and faith. So that probably has liberated the European society from the complete domination of the religion. So grammar, logic, and rhetoric became essential for the preacher to re-promote the views of church by combining religion and science. And apart from that, there is these three subjects which they are taught in the medieval schools, Oxford University, Cambridge University. Today I'm talking about university, but they are all schools. Anyways, the very irony of the Catholic Church. It started schools to support the Catholic Church and the theory of Christianity, but the very schools in course of time challenged the church through their scientific research. That I'll come to later. So grammar, logic, and rhetoric are called as trivium. Trivium, 3 subjects, and there are also science, except music, is called a quadrivium. Quadrivium is mathematics, geometry, astronomy, music. These 4 subjects, quadrivium, and the 3 subjects, trivium, that's logic, grammar, and rhetoric, are taught in an effort to bring the science and religion together, so that the preachers would have the ability of countering the responses or countering the questions coming from the society. So the church would regain the faith. Okay, would regain the faith. So it presents whatever it says as knowledge, whatever it says as true. Okay, so it was pushed into a corner by the developing society, urban society in the medieval times. But despite its challenge, the medieval worldview, so established from the 4th century onwards, continues even till today. The medieval worldview is understanding of the visible physical world, especially the space, including the humans, including the planet, that put that into a plan. So that scheme or plan or scheme is medieval worldview is there is earth, under the earth there is heaven, above the earth there is under the earth there is hell, inside or under sometimes it's under the earth there is hell, above the earth there is heaven, above the heaven there are cosmic stars. This is the medieval worldview. As far as the universe, providing explanation to the visible universe is concerned, this is the medieval worldview. So this medieval worldview suits very well to the very idea of God and religion, because it's like the theory of creation settles on this plan. That means if the God is a punisher, there should be a place for punishment. So that punishment is hell. If the God is an appreciator of what you do, there should be a place for appreciating your actions. That is heaven. Okay, so the heaven, hell, and a planet would very well stick into the plan. But what about the stars which are very visible? So you place them above the heaven. So this is actually what is the medieval worldview. This medieval worldview, though we call as medieval worldview, it is very pertinent in all religions. So we are calling it as medieval worldview because certain shape, form, and to that idea is given in Christianity. So therefore, we talk about it. Otherwise, it exists in all religions. The concept of hell, heaven, and the real world or the human world exist in all religions. So the medieval worldview combined all these factors and theory of creation bases itself on that. So only this would be challenged by the people of Renaissance, scientists, philosophers of Renaissance, and the scientific revolution in course of time. So what comes back, why we call in revolution, why new knowledge, like the Thomas Kuhn, the scientific revolution talks about, the change for the changed society, the explanations offered by the religion are not suitable at all. So which means it is a new context and time for which the available knowledge is not able to explain or provide solutions. Either explain the problems, provide convincible answers, or provide solutions to the problems that are being faced at the Renaissance. So what they do, they thought that there's certain amount of knowledge that can be used or improved So they have to go back to the Greek Roman philosophy. So they brought it back to the 12th century to further improvise it. So the theory of solar system, we often call it is actually universe, theory of universe, because the limitations of the human mind at that point of time, we can only see the stars that are visible. So we thought all stars are part of the solar system. So therefore we call, we call it as universe. Universe is what the 9 planets are not the part of universe. It's its satellites are not the universe. Universe after from the Isaac Newton to today, there is a huge amount of research on the universe. Universe is expanding. Universe is continuously expanding. There is so it will come crashing again. If there is a beginning, there will be end. So so all this sort of knowledge is provided to us by the scientists of the 20th century, including Stephen Hawking. So but at that point in time, in the say 11th century or 12th century or 13th century, 14th century, the limitations to the human mind is that is still a knowledge that is being observed, being guessed, being speculated. Most of the knowledge that we say that is existing on the universe, on the planets that is existing, movements of the planets and so on and so forth, till the telescope that is brought into the usage by Galileo. Even the Copernicus calculations, mathematical calculations on the sun being the center of the universe, again planetary system, is based on the mathematical calculations which are speculative and guessed. Unless and until Galileo comes, that's why Church was very angry. Galileo is providing justification to the Copernicus theory of solar system through his observations, magnified observations, much more the human's ability to see the things that are distant, near, things that are smaller and bigger, telescope and microscope. So the scientific instruments, the creation of scientific instruments to extend the ability of the human to understand the truth or to provide the evidence for truth is happening during the scientific revolution or renaissance. Example, I told you that the Galileo's observations on Mars and Moon and their movements seems to have provided the evidence to Copernicus' groundbreaking theory of heliocentrism, that is the sun-centric universe, a sun-centric planet, a sun-centric solar system. So interchangeably, I am using the universe. It is not the universe. So it's only with part of the Milky Way, we all know. Anyway, so like that, the Renaissance is trying to reborrow the amount of knowledge on reality, human reality, natural reality, whatever is provided earlier by the Greeks and Romans, they are borrowing it. That's what we call Renaissance, rebirth. What is recoming? Rebirth, you can say recoming. So what is recoming was the philosophy on nature, philosophy on natural reality, physical reality, thought, mind, and all that was recoming into the 11th century, 12th century Europe. Apart from they borrowing from the neighboring civilizations from Persia and as well as India, China. So all these efforts were being made. So the foundational character of the Renaissance is realism. Realism. How things appear, what they are, what you see is what is real. Okay, so realism would automatically eliminate the inbuilt illogicality built into the human narratives of human reality. Whatever earlier into the human reality, a lot of amount of illogicalities into are penetrated. So those need to be eliminated. So that elimination only takes place when you try to see things mechanical in a mechanical sense. Mechanical sense. Copernicus medieval worldview, I've already pointed out, that is actually challenged by the application of heliocentrism, mechanistic and mathematical conceptions of Copernicus, Kepler, William Harvey, and Galileo. So a lot of metaphysics, that is beyond the physical, metaphysical explanations are penetrated into the human narrations of reality during the age of faith. So since they are not suitable to the society, they need to work on them, produce more suitable narratives, and for foundation it seems to be there in the classical civilization. So they have to reborrow these works and try to build the new theories on the Greco-Roman knowledge. So that is what is heliocentrism, as well as anatomy of the body. Both these two theories, one is on the outer universe, another is on the inner universe. Outer universe and inner universe. Outer universe is the thing that you can see with your naked eyes or with the help of an instrument, whatever you can see, as far as your eye allows you to see, as far as your extended ability in the form of a scientific instrument, with the help of a scientific instrument, magnifying glasses, whatever. That is what is universal, outer universe. Inner universe is a thing that cannot be seen with your naked eyes. It is covered in some sort of a cover. It could be a tree. You cannot see inside the material what is there, a tree. It is a human. Your skin is only can be seen. Beyond your skin, with your naked eyes, you cannot see. So that is inner universe. So inner universe and outer universe provided with the logical, if not complete, because we are coming to the chromosomes only now, which are the providers of energy to the human body. Is it not? So the very basic elimination of the illogicality attached to the very idea of human existence. Human body, how human body is emerged. So theory of creation says it is created by the God. Final. I created the God for the purpose. You have to serve a purpose. Once the purpose is over, I'll kill you. That's the simple logic given to the human society by the theory of creation, is it not? Is there any other explanation that can be given? If there is any other explanation given, that are all hypocritical. That means only latter improvements. For example, karma, all these are latter improvements. That you do good things, you will live longer. You do bad things, you live shorter. You do bad things, you'll be killed violently. I don't know. So these are only latter improvements in an effort to provide justifications to the illogicalities that are inbuilt in the those interpretations. Okay. Anyway, so point is that the anatomy of the Adrius Vesalius is open the inner universe out. The inner universe is cut open. So cutting open of the inner universe, that is human body, is a straight challenge to the very theory of creation, because design of the God cannot be understood by a feeble human. Is it not? Very feeble. You are created by me. How can you understand my design? If you understood the design, you understood me. Therefore, you should not understood what I create. Understand what I created. So therefore, that is a straight challenge to the very idea of theory of creation. Coming from the university, which was started as a school by the Catholic Church, that is Padua University in Italy. Adrius Vesalius, Copernicus, to the both theories of universe, the geocentric theory of the Greeks, challenged by the heliocentrism. Claudius Galen had an theory of anatomy in the classical times. That is challenged by the Adrius Vesalius application of mechanics to the human body. So both the theories of both the theory inner universe and outer universe were challenged during the Renaissance or the scientific revolution. So both the anatomy of the human body and the revolution of orbits, both are published in 1543, that is 16th century, and both were coming from a university which was started as a school to justify the theory of Christianity. But unfortunately, the challenge is coming to the church from the schools which itself was started. So that's like that. It could not be avoided because church itself has made a compromise. So it is, though it is still challenging. The ultimate challenge to the religion is being still challenged by the science. So science, if challenging the ultimate foundations of the church is challenging it. Of course, otherwise, if that is not the case, it not totally is compromised with its what it wanted to say, or its foundations are not totally compromised. If that is the case, Galileo would not have been put to the isolation, religious court, and Giordano Bruno could not have been killed by the church. So if it killed these scientists, it still wanted to stick to the foundations of its religion, but at the same time, it wanted to also give an impression that, look, I am not unconnected to the context and changing time. I also believe in science and so on and so forth. That impression also it wanted to give. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about so out of these schools, what has happened is that actually it's a medieval sort of thing. It's very important to mention is that and that is very organizedly happened is that production or the creation of a theologian come scientist. A theologian come scientist is a very interesting development in the Christianity. That is also there at various degrees in all other religions too. That a person who is very capable of theology is also a person who is very good at science. Recently, the Hindu priest is well recognized as a top mathematician. So which means that combination you can see also. So therefore, I forgot his name, sorry. So like that, you have this combination that is being established, but it is very organized, planned, organized. So the theologian comes scientist, and that is happening. So that combination found to be essential by the social forces, religious forces. So continuously rejecting the science would not work in their favor. So therefore, there has to be a certain amount of, you have to stack certain amount of compromise. That does not mean that totally the quote unquote the other truth is being given up. If that is the case, the foundations will fall down. So therefore, they have to stick to the basic day truth. So that doing it, but very interestingly, that combination you can see in all religions today. Theologian comes scientist combination. So there are, the theologian is well versed in science as well as in theology. You have a father as a doctor, you have a priest as a doctor, you have a William as a doctor. So what explains this combination? What explains this combination? The successful development of this combination, survival of this combination, does not mean that both are same, but that elimination of the contradiction became essential for the establishments, religious establishment, to continue into the future. For their survival, they have to. So the combination goes very well. We are, all of us, all of us are also accept the dual truth. We are religious at the same time. We're also scientists. I don't know how many of there are scientists in this group. And we are religious at the same time. We're also educated. Like if you referring to the non-scientist. So this duality is there in an educated person also, which is like, I would say it is not a crime, but unfair and not proper to the very idea of science and reason and knowledge. It's not that duality. Accepting the duality is very unfair to any educated person, because that is not true. You can't go on the two boats, so you have to agree to one. Anyway, so this combination is proved to be very successful, and I need not have to tell you, there are top scientists coming from the religion-backed establishments in this civilized society or scientific society today, we can call. We also use the phrase called knowledge society. So all these phrases we are using. So therefore, that combination is found to be very successful. But for my understanding, that is very unfair combination. That need to be. I'm not saying that combination need to be disturbed, but what I'm saying is that at least the illogicality in that combination need to be understood, accepted as. You have to accept that combination as unfair. Let that combination, if the humans are capable of taking those dual truths in them, let them continue. I have no problem, unless and until it troubles anybody. That is one thing. But second point is that even if it troubles or not, first of all, you have to agree that it is wrong. Then let it go. Okay. So consider that it is unfair. It cannot be done. Then you say, for various purposes, that combination is created. So let us not break that combination, demolish that combination. Let there be a doctor who is also a father. Let there be a doctor who is also ulama. Let there be a doctor who is also a priest. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm not problematization of. If I problematize that category, I am problematizing because I want the educated person to see the problem in that category. I am not seeing it as a serious problem. First of all, you accept that it is against the very idea of truth. Then if there are some sociological purposes you allotted to that combination, let it go. I don't mind. So however, you have to, since you are a common a person with reason and logic, you have to understand. Please realize the problem in that category, the contradiction in that dual truth, duality. So that what I would like to like you to recognize. So the application of mechanics to the human body is certainly brought an end to the authority of the theory of Christianity on the human creation of human. If you wanted to say human creation is mean different. Creation of humans by the invisible, because if you understood the design of the invisible, it is also understood the invisible. It is also equal to understanding the invisible. So therefore, you have no right to understand the design. That's why theory, most of the religions says you cannot understand what is unknown. Okay, so unknown is, if the unknown is invisible is God, so you cannot understand. So therefore, if what is created and what is visible physically here is created by the unknown, ununderstandable, uncomprehendable, so therefore you cannot comprehend anything. So which means that your mind do not possess the capacity of comprehending things that are only limited to be comprehended by the invisible. So therefore you don't make any efforts. If you make the efforts, you are criminal. So criminalization of comprehending the natural truth, physical truth, is what is a serious problem. Criminalization of comprehending the physical and natural truth. It's almost a criminalization of physical and natural truth by the religious forces across. I'm not referring to anyone across. So criminalization is essential for the submissive minds, survival of the submissive minds, presence of the submissive minds. And otherwise, everybody start questioning illogical on the illogicalities. So, very cleverly, criminalization of the mind, independent logical mind, is the first thing that is done by the forces that want you to be submissive, follower, no challenger, no questioner. So that becomes a main forte of all these forces. So which means that automatically eliminates the knowledge production capacity. Number one. Second, it also stops you from providing yourself a practical solution to the problems that you face. And the third, even if you have provided practical solutions to your problems with your own capacity or by borrowing the capacity of another person's mind or a combination of minds, certain amount of certain amount of credit is given to the, still a credit is given to the invisible. Which means if I have provided this practical solution to a practical problem, it has happened not because of all of us, because of someone above us. So which means intentionally crediting, intentionally offering the credit to the invisible, so that you would not declare yourself as the provider of solutions to your own problems or the problem of your related, problem of your community or problem of the world, nation, whatever. So, I mean, somewhere down the line, there has to be space in your mind which allows you to think that I cannot solve all the problems. Even if you are producing solutions that are very well logical, commonsensical, practical, there's no one playing, I mean, no one means not an existing other human, but an invisible. No invisible is playing any role in what I, the way I produce solutions to myself, so my people. Yet you are made to believe in corner of your mind that look, all that you do, even if you provide solutions to your problems, you are not the owner of those problems, solutions. So therefore you keep that in mind. So that is the complete, expecting the complete submission of the mind to the authority, quote unquote, the authority is what the problem here is. So that means that if you say that the design, even if you understood the design, one has to say I understood the design because I allowed to understand. I was allowed to understand the design. It is not my own capacity to that allowed me to understand the design. I was allowed by someone to understand the design. Otherwise, I cannot. So this consistent justification of designifying human Okay, despite at every level you have been the provider of solutions to your problems, the self provides the consistent justification of designification of the human mind, human self, human individuality. All these are consistently designified. So the designification of the human intelligence is provided to you as an unavoidable culture. It's not inbuilt in the human. Some of it could be inbuiltable because human cannot comprehend many things at individual level. So therefore, that weakness is there. But apart from that, that convincing a person convincing that he or she are incapable of providing solutions to their own problems comes from an organized convincing done by the agencies which wanted to control you. So if you are allowed to be independent, you are capable of providing solutions, practical solutions, but that would be dangerous. So therefore, you need to be controlled. Okay, so the design of the human body, if appreciated as the greatest thing, then you are agreeing that someone has understood the design of the God, which means is also equal to understanding the God. So you cannot understand the God. How can you? Because your creation says that you are how to understand my creation. You only have the ability to understand the way I created you. You cannot understand my creation. But the creator understanding the creation is the basic foundational philosophy of the human intelligence, human science. Car, bike, laptop. Created by the creator, a creator can understand how it is created. So you see the physicality, I mean, the unconnectedness between the theory of creation and the human natural reality. So yet the inner universe is perfectly, if not perfectly, at that point of time, the foundational or the fundamental effort is made by the Ardres Vesalius to understand the human body. And by applying mechanics, so the movements of the body, mechanical structure of the body, connections, movements, legs, hands, skeleton I'm talking about, structure. So the structure of the body has certain amount of movements, movability and all that. So how it is working. So mechanically understand the body as a machine. So application of mechanics. So application of mechanics automatically eliminated the metaphysical explanation of human life. Metaphysical explanation of human life is automatically eliminated, whether you like it or not. Okay, so therefore inner universe is understood. Outer universe is also understood. Outer universe, all they have limitations. Understood means only foundational steps have been made, that's it. But these foundational steps immediately delinking the metaphysical explanations to the inner universe as well as outer universe. Are they completely delinking? Maybe not. A lot of things to be explained. Okay, you understood the body as a machine, where hydrology, where the water, how it is pumping the liquid inside, where the blood is coming from. William Harvey comes in. So we come to chromosomes, producers of energy to the body. So that is happening only in the recent times. Cells we have gone to, after cells we have gone to chromosomes, structure of the chromosomes. Then we have gone to DNA. So the foundational step was made, which is an immediate primary challenge to the very theory of creation, that the body is not created by someone. It is a biological process which can be understood. The creation, death. I must mention one, that we are in the middle of the pandemic. Is very important to mention, is that how weak we are, how powerful the European medieval times people. 1343, there was a virus called bubonic virus, which has actually started in Central Asia, today Iran, Iraq, and spread to throughout the world at that point in time, whichever is connected by the land mass. It killed crores of people. It is for the first time the Europeans are trying to ask logical questions on the very idea of death. This virus is the virus caused death of the incident, call it as Black Death. Black Death is a death that cannot be explained. The virus related deaths could not be explained. That's why it's called as Black Death. Today we are capable of understanding the very structure of the DNA of the coronavirus, which cannot be seen with your naked eyes. At that point in time, in 1343, you all know there were no instruments, scientific instruments, which are capable of understanding the structure of the virus. So they began under the influence of religion. They were there for a long time, so they have not asked any serious questions on the concept of death. Now they are asking questions on the concept of death. Why are so many people dying at in days time and across ages? How do you explain that? How do you explain so many deaths in days time and that way across the ages? First challenge came to the theory of creation is God created human for a purpose. How do you guarantee, how do you say, how do you argue that a 5-year-old kid dies and then his purpose is served? That to mass number. So the Black Death has thrown a challenge to the European society that forced the Black Death virus, pandemic. Today we are living in that. The pandemic has thrown a challenge to the European society to look for the practical explanations of the death. Don't believe in the explanations offered by the religion. Look for the practical solutions. If many are dying, there might be something other than what is being told by the religion. Reasons for death. So reasons for death is nature, a virus, a bacteria. Your part. In an environment, you are also part of it. There are also germs and viruses, bacteria, which are also part of the nature. Your body is subjected to the impact of their existence. So therefore, that is what is reality is. So you have to connect your body to the existence. Instead of trying to seek solace in explanations to birth and death and disease, ill health, in something that is invisible, here say you have to look for answers within the nature where you are living. There are enemies to your body. They'll keep impacting your body. So therefore, the connection between the nature and the human that is eliminated by the organized religions are to come back in the 14th century. So they come back with a serious effort to understand what is the connection between the human body and nature. So you have to seek the explanations for impact on your body in the nature, not from the skies. So this is also one of the important. Now before this was 1343 I'm talking about, then 1543 is the Adris Vesalius thing. So logically you have the acceptance coming from the European society to the anatomy. After that, William Harvey. Okay, so like that, you have this challenge thrown to. But today, look at yourself. I mean ourselves. I'm not referring to any single person here. I'm referring to entire community here. Our response to the virus which is structurally which structure could be understood, virus against which could be produced in some 9 months and 12 months or say the 1.5 years time, which is very difficult. Instead of two, we have witnessed two methods of understanding or offering explanations. From many people, even educated, trying to attribute the coming of virus to the invisible powers or the bad things done by some sections of society, some countries, some people, somewhere. So they are the reason for the virus to come into. So such kind of explanations are already there, but simultaneously we are also understanding the structure. In lab, we are also understanding the structure of the virus. So both are existing at this point in time also. Okay, so even if you have an explanation that seems to be 100% scientific, we still force ourselves to believe that no, that is not enough. We need to believe in this also. So that kind of a duality we are in, or the what you say, compartmentalized self. We are you are rational as well as religious at the same time. So that compartmentalized itself is very comfortable for a human who believed that at individual level that do not have the enough information on all things that are existing in this universe. So therefore you can never claim that I know everything, so I need not have to be quote unquote arrogance. That is not arrogance, actually. Really, accepting what is reality. That's it. So anyway, so this application of mechanics has resulted in producing the acceptable knowledge on the body, and that resulted in the understanding the inner universe. After that, if you see the Renaissance times also have redevelopment of the kingdoms, political forces, also involved in a lot of wars, and their wars, military wars has make them depend upon military technology, and the urban development. The military technology, the artillery made them to understand the logic of the falling bodies and so on and so forth. So this way there are extra efforts, though completely not eliminating from the metaphysical explanations, but practically they are providing a solution. They turn out to be technological, which has less connection with the religion, more connection with the practical problem called facing the war, winning in the war, producing eatable material, building houses. All these things were happening simultaneously in Renaissance times in the expanding urban areas. That also led to the certain amount of engineering, agricultural science, and so on and so forth during the Renaissance time. So that led to more contemplation on application of science and technology to even to the very idea of flying. The Leonardo da Vinci for the first time worked on the flying machine. So at that point in time, into his flying machine, the thermodynamics were missing. But I think, according to historians, a multifaceted person like Da Vinci had made efforts to. He's also an anatomist and is also an engineer and is also painter. So in his paintings, he applied mechanics. So therefore, that attempt was also there during the Renaissance, is trying to apply mechanics to the practical problems of the life. And given the time, persons like Leonardo da Vinci was also trying to apply mechanics to the idea that was only toyed with in 1909, 1903 by the Wright brothers. But earlier that Da Vinci made efforts to draw the design of a flying machine at that point in time. So the Da Vinci is one of the multifaceted person who Da Vinci Code. But Da Vinci Code is actually considered as a historical novel. But I think if you see that, read that novel by Don Brown, or you see the movies that are made, a series of movies that are made on Da Vinci Code, the Angels and Demons, and the Inferno. These things would tell you it is not historical work, but however they'll give you certain amount of understanding on what is happening, the tussle between the faith and religion at this point in time. In this movie, actually in the first, I think, or second, Angels and Demons, the priest says it is a time where actually the CERN, that is the ultimate particle, that efforts are being made to understand the genesis of the universe, and 2012, I believe. So at this point in time, this movie is being made. So the priest in that movie says that if everything is understood by the God, what is there left for the God? If everything is understood by the human, that is scientist, what is there left for the God? That's what the statement the priest made when he come to know that that the CERN research is going on to find out the ultimate particle that has the ability of gathering the mass. Again, you look at the name given to that. It is Higgs-boson particle, but there is another name to that also, God's particle. So human society is not able to come out of that very idea. Even the entire scientific community of the globe, they are not able to come out of that. So this boson is actually Jayendra Bose, I think, from Bengal. He proposed long back of the element particle, and then so there's this Higgs from the Western Europe. So both of them, to respect both of them, they named it scientifically. But also it is also known as particle, God's particle. So the inability, if there is a particle that is an ultimate particle that has the ability of generating mass or mass particles, other particles, it has to be God's particle. There cannot be any other. So that sort of an understanding, the scientific society also came into, and they could not avoid naming it as a God particle. Very unfortunate, I mean, unfair. Unfortunate and unfair.
Sir, Srinivasa Rao, sir.
Yeah.
So sorry for the interruption.
Yes, madam, I
It's
finished.
a time to conclude your speech, sir.
Okay, so I'm finishing it. So therefore, science, coming to the Thomas Kuhn's this paradigm shift, is not in an overall period, though I could not come into the 20th century because of lack of time. So it consistently changes. What determines what is knowledge is consistently changes. As I told you, in the pre-classical times, age of reason, age of faith, at these particular points in time, some force and some concept is determining what is knowledge. So here, when it comes to the modern times, what is considering what according to the Thomas Kuhn is that the problem earlier it was actually a force. Earlier it was a force, religion and reason. Today, in the modern times, the scientific research is determined by a problem. For example, global warming is a problem, which is determining the path of the research. So like that, the science research, when you look at, it's constantly changing, priorities changes, forces of determining what kind of research to be done is also changes. So thank you for listening to me. I'm very happy to be part of this refresher or engagement or interaction. Thank you.
I immensely thank Dr. Srinivasa Rao sir for his explorative talk on scientific research in a historical perspective. Hope you all have benefited out of his talk. Though you are belonging to different disciplines, it's an opportunity for everyone to listen the science concepts in a historical perspective. So in that way, I think you have some idea about that. So now it's a break for lunch and we'll resume back exactly by 1:45. I am insisting you to maintain time. So we not like unlike morning, you all be presenting at 1:45 exactly, so that we'll have the next session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.